You've probably been told by people that you just need to get out there or to face your fears when it comes to dealing with social anxiety. We all know that we need to do this at some point if we ever hope to get better, but how hard should you actually be pushing yourself? In this video, I'll show you the way I've been doing it and explain why I think it's much better to gradually expand your comfort zone rather than trying to just forcibly face your fears. Hey there, I'm Neil and I struggle with social anxiety disorder for more than 2 decades. On this channel, every week, I'll be bringing you the best methods and strategies that I've used to feel more confident in my own life. When we're in our comfort zone, we experience low levels of anxiety and stress. Things seem familiar to us and we feel safe. If we never leave our comfort zones, however, we miss out on one of the key ingredients required to overcome social anxiety, which is new experiences. This will never give us the chance to teach our brains that socializing can actually be very rewarding and it's in fact not a dangerous thing to do. We'll never actually be able to replace the old negatively perceived events with more positive ones if we don't leave our comfort zone. Pushing ourselves outside of our comfort zone can be difficult and it can create a lot of resistance, and we need to really work on changing this old bad habit of avoidance. Cognitive behavioral therapy, which is currently known as the gold standard for treating social anxiety disorder, has the behavioral part in it for a reason, because it's actually an essential part of the process to getting better. What might then be some of the best ways that we can begin to expand our comfort zones? Firstly, there's a technique known as flooding. So flooding is a type of exposure therapy that involves the person exposing themselves to their worst fears. The person might stay in the situation until their fight, flight or freeze response has a chance to learn the situation is safe and begins to calm down. The idea of flooding is that your brain will then begin to form new associations once it realizes the situation is not actually to be feared. Flooding for social anxiety disorder, however, can actually be very difficult because the cognitive ability to actually make conversation gets shut down by your fight, flight or freeze response. So it can make it very difficult to act and actually know what to say in these situations. If you do ever force yourself into a social situation that you find highly anxiety provoking, then you may actually find that your fight, flight or fight response may not actually come down enough till you feel relaxed in the situation and find it easy to make conversation. There is a difference between turning up to an event and actively participating in it. Most people are not going to be able to continually force themselves to be flooded with social situations that cause them so much anxiety. The anticipatory anxiety before these situations as well can be so high and it will just end up taking over your life. You may be able to do it in the short term, but long term it's really not much of a sustainable solution. Flooding may work quite well for simple phobias of things like spiders or perhaps claustrophobia, but for social anxiety it can be quite difficult because there are so many triggers that could cause it that simply exposing yourself to some of them may not deal with all of them, and it can just take such a long time and be a very stressful experience. If you don't yet have a very good handle on a lot of the cognitive strategies that can be used to deal with social anxiety, then simply putting yourself in very highly provoking anxiety situations is going to be very stressful, and a lot of the behaviors, the strategies you might have may just go out the window because your brain's going to be so focused on trying to get you out the situation that you're not really going to be able to respond in the way you'd like to actually get better. So really, flooding can be something that can be used effectively for other stimulus, perhaps alongside a therapist, but for social anxiety, it's not really in the long run going to be a very effective strategy. Examples in my own life where I've tried to use flooding to deal with social anxiety have been things like giving Toastmaster speeches in front of more than 30 people, and I even performed in a live improv show in front of more than 40 people. I also found social events on meetup.com where I'd go to 20s and 30s groups and I'd turn up and there'd be like more than 30 people there, all packed around a table in a small pub. And when you don't know anyone and you're going for the first time, when you don't have much experience of actually trying to overcome social anxiety, then this sort of situation can be extremely stressful, and I wouldn't really recommend it if you're just starting out. Of course, I didn't manage to keep all these things up long term, but nowadays I can do most of this stuff without too much anxiety because I found a better way to get there, and a way that I continue to use. I like to call this the Goldilocks zone, and this is where you just gradually ease your way out of your comfort zone and you do things that you wouldn't usually do just to push yourself a little bit more in your day-to-day life. Some examples of this are things like just speaking up where I normally wouldn't have done in the past, or when I make eye contact with people, I'll hold it for a bit longer than I normally would. I'll try and reveal a bit more about myself in conversations, say things that I perhaps normally wouldn't have felt comfortable saying, and even just try speaking for a bit longer when it's my turn to speak. It's really just doing anything at all that you can that just gradually eases your way out of that comfort zone. Just things in general, I'd say, that cause you less than a 3 out of 10 in terms of anxiety on the scale. If you're consistently doing things that are causing you anxiety of more than about a 5 out of 10 on the scale, then you should probably try and reconsider and see if you can make things a little bit easier for yourself. If you stay within that Goldilocks zone, then whatever life throws at you, you should be able to handle without finding it too anxiety provoking. So long as you're staying within the Goldilocks zone, you should find that the cognitive strategies that you have to use with social anxiety, the things like the externally focusing and the actively listening when you're in a conversation, are a lot easier to use and have a lot more benefit for you. So it's better, I think, to just gradually expand your comfort zone instead of trying to force it. If we begin to do these little things in our day-to-day lives, then these small steps over time will build up to create massive changes. To quote James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, "Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. No single instance will transform your beliefs, but as the votes build up, then so does the evidence of your new identity." A really great strategy that I've used and I've found really helpful over the years is just talking to the next easiest person whenever you're in a social situation. Just find a person that doesn't cause you too much anxiety and talk to them. Whenever you're at a social event, just ask yourself who is the next easiest person to talk to, and then go and strike up a conversation with them. And by doing that, you're never going to feel too much anxiety by doing it. Just stay talking with that person until you feel little to no discomfort, and then move on to the next person. So that way, you should never feel too much anxiety, and you can just keep on talking with similar people until you feel ready to make another step up to the next person that causes you a little bit of anxiety. By doing this, you never really need to avoid people when you're at situations, and you can just keep finding someone that doesn't cause you too much stress while you're there. So you're always going to be growing, and you never need to beat yourself up for not talking to the people that may cause you more anxiety, because you know that if you keep doing that progressively, then eventually they'll be the next easiest people to talk to, and you can just grow and grow from there. This is a strategy that I use all the time when I go to social events. I like to challenge myself regularly by going to meetup events and just general mingling, socializing events. And to begin with, I just kind of go there and I'd sit at a table and talk to people. But more recently, as I've done it more and more, I'm starting to get to the point where I just move around the room and I'll talk to other groups of people that I wouldn't have done before. But I'm never flooded with anxiety when I go there, and I feel much more relaxed about doing it, so I'm not forcing myself and beating myself up for not talking to people that I find more intimidating. One final thing to note is that when you're in social situations, things probably always won't go perfectly just the way you're expecting, and even if you're just trying to keep yourself within that Goldilocks zone, that sometimes your anxiety might spike and you might find yourself feeling more anxious than you were expecting. If that does happen, then just accept it at the time and try and move to a situation that causes you less anxiety as soon as you can. If it does happen quite a lot, then just consider maybe if you're pushing yourself a little bit too hard too soon, and just try to reevaluate if you can. Maybe you just need to spend a bit more time learning the cognitive strategies first before you throw yourself headfirst into social situations, or maybe you do just need to find events that are just a little bit less stressful for you. If you enjoyed this video and you want to watch more, then check out my next one, where I'll be talking about some slowing down strategies that you can use when you're feeling overwhelmed in social situations. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this content valuable, then please hit the like and subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.